And welcome back to Golf Weekly for our third and final segment, which is really exciting for me personally. I love the memories and the history of Augusta. We're going to be talking the greatest moments in Masters history. And we've added a new face to our panel, your favorite golf pro and mine, Mr. Doug Weaver.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Doug. Thanks for squeezing on in here between lessons.
And I love to talk about the Masters.
Who doesn't? Well, let's jump right in, guys. Greatest Masters moments. I don't think anybody would argue that probably at the top of that list is Jack in '86. Would you guys agree?
Right.
What do you recall about that Masters?
Well, I was out of the country in Brazil, and it still was major news there.
Yeah, kind of news around the world, wasn't it?
Yes.
Terry?
As I was watching it, I just remember thinking, could this happen? Could this really happen? And sure enough.
Lo and behold.
Right.
I remember my uncle saying Greg Norman needed just but a par. Most people forget that. Norman being the ultimate bridesmaid at Augusta, needing just a par on 18. I remember my uncle saying, Greg, if you just find a way to bogey this hole, I'll be a fan of yours the rest of your career. And old poor Greg, as we all know, blew it dead right and didn't get up and down, and Jack won his 6th green jacket and 18th professional major.
Wow, and to talk about bridesmaids, Norman, how about when Larry Mize chipped it in on 11?
In 87, the very next year.
Wow.
Now just imagine the heartbreak. I mean, I'll never forget Mize jumping up and down, and it was almost as if once he realized what had happened, he was apologizing for his reaction and the crowd's, because Norman's standing over there with his hands on his hips like, what do I have to do to get one of these?
Right.
And then that takes me back to 96.
Is that Faldo?
Nick Faldo. I was actually there that year, and walking in, Faldo was always my favorite player, and at that time, Faldo was #1 in the world and already had 2 green jackets. But this was Norman's time, clearly.
Right.
He started off the week, I think, Terry, you had mentioned, broke the course, or tied the course record, 63 earlier in that week, and had just dominated the field.
Right.
Walked into that Sunday with a 6-shot lead over Faldo, and had relinquished that by the 12th hole.
Right.
I remember when he dunked his tee shot on 12, there were a bunch of female Norman fans that were crying their eyes out. And it was a really painful thing to watch. That was one of the more surreal days that I can remember in sports. Do you guys remember that Masters?
Yes.
What were your feelings in watching that? It's almost like you wanted to run and hide.
Right. Yeah, it was almost like Rory last year.
Yeah.
That you just couldn't believe it was actually happening. So.
And anybody that's ever played the game understands what I choke in a $2 Nassau.
But see, Norman doesn't choke. He gives it away. He's so aggressive. Back to the year with Faldo, I remember being on the couch, not going to miss a shot. He gets it to #9. The pin's on the front. The green's sloped like this. The pin's here. He goes for the pin.
Right.
And he has this, probably a 9-iron. He gets a lot of spin, and it spins down the hill.
Yes.
Faldo is probably 4 shots back.
Right.
But he plays it to the middle of the green, gets his par, and then Norman gives him, at least a bogey, so the momentum turned.
That's right.
His aggression caused him to, if he'd have just played for the fat part of the green, the center.
That's a really good point, and you mentioned Faldo playing smart. I think what a lot of people forget about that Masters was, it was really more remembered for what Norman didn't do instead of what Faldo did do. Faldo shot a bogey-free 67 that day. That was like watching a surgeon move his way through that golf course. It was amazing to watch. I would be remiss, love him or hate him, if I didn't mention Tiger's groundbreaking victory. Historical victory in '97. What do you guys recall about that?
Course record?
Yeah.
270 for 72 holes.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he won by 12 shots.
I think so.
Yeah, 12 shots. Whew. Second place is 12 shots behind him.
12 shots. I think it was Tom Kite was second that year. Yeah, and you had the whole the history of the Masters and the racial elements tied in there, and Tiger jumping onto the scene now as the new phenom. So you had all those elements that were working into that Masters to make it a little bit more spicy, I guess, for the media.
Right, good point. One of the things I want to throw in there is how golf is for everybody. Golf is for everybody. Here they make this Masters even longer. Only the most powerful are going to win here. and Zach Johnson doesn't go for one par 5 and shoots 11 under, laying up every time and wins with his wedge.
2007 victory. Yeah,
that was great.
That's a good point. Yeah, because and they're saying in this last decade, because Phil and Tiger have won 6 of the last 11, that it's only for the big bombers with the good touch. But what people forget is in that time frame, you've had champions like Charles Schwartzel, Trevor Immelman, and Zach Johnson.
Yeah.
So don't tell me that some of these Luke Donald types don't hit the ball as far, but still have exquisite short games, can't win.
Charles Schwartzel is as thin as my golf club. I mean, weighs 145 pounds, but I was there last Sunday watching the most exciting Sunday in a long time, live with my wife and son, and the energy was high, and then he rolls the dice, or he just, what do you call it? Just runs the table.
Runs the table. Birdies the last 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was some compelling stuff. Guys, that's about all the time we have. It's amazing once you get talking about this stuff, how quickly time can go.
Yes.
But I just think we're in store for arguably, maybe we're overselling this, but arguably what's going to be one of the best Masters that we've ever seen, given what's happened leading up to it.
Oh, wow.
Thank you so much for joining us. This has been such a fun show. We've got the Masters coming up, obviously, next week. I'm sure you'll be rooting on your favorite player. Thank you for Doug Weaver for being here with us, Mr. Terry Daugherty, and all of our sponsors and other panelists that make this show possible. We'll look forward to seeing you next week on Golf Weekly. See you then.